Are we ready? All right, good evening. Phoenix #1 community, thank you so much for joining us today, Tuesday, November 28th, for our November meeting. I am calling this meeting to order at 5:16. With that, we're going to begin with our tribal land acknowledgement. In partnership with the tribes who call Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. Roll call.
Good evening. Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Here.
Mr. Reginald Carrillo, Ms. Erica de la Rosa,
Here.
Dr. Alicia Vink, and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have a quorum to begin this meeting, and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, and may I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
This is Carmen Trujillo, so moved. Erica de la Rosa, second.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have adopted our agenda for tonight's meeting, and I am passing it over to our interim superintendent, Dr. Gonzalez, to tell us about the awards, recognitions, and announcements.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, our cabinet, and our viewing community. Thanks to the work of Ms. Nicole Baker, our Executive Director of Communications, Marketing, and Community Relations, and 4 of our FACE specialists, Ms. Rocio Libby from HURD, Ms. Leticia Comparan from Dunbar, Ms. Adriana Ramirez from HURD, and Ms. Roxana Martinez from Faith North, we were able to pass out over 100 books and over 100 family activity kits to reinforce learning at home using cards, dice, and other supplies to make homemade flashcards and vocabulary cards. So families attending the Grand Thanksgiving Festival at the Arizona 2023 Barrios Unidos Park. This was a wonderful event to be part of as we continue to work to increase our enrollment. Thanks to Ms. Baker and her team of FACE specialists, they were amazing recruiters for our district, and we collected almost 200 names and phone numbers for people to come to our district. We're also pleased to share that our continuation of the building of our family rooms at each school is nearing its final phase. Our FACE specialists and their principals have been working with Ms. Sherry Zeeb to design their spaces so that we have welcoming family rooms at every one of our schools. Furnishings and materials for their family rooms will be arriving soon, and we can't wait to show these new spaces off to our families. On November 9th, several of our principals and members of the school team attended the 2023 Betsy Conference, where 8 leaders were recognized for their work in building and sustaining positive behavior intervention supports, also known as PBIS. The schools recognized include Bethune, Dunbar, Capital, Emerson, Faith North, Kenilworth, Lowell, and Whittier. Phoenix #1 received the 2nd highest number of awards and had the largest percentage of schools within a district recognized at this event. One of the other special events we held this last month was during Native American Heritage Month, our Phoenix #1 Indian Education Fall Festival. Ms. Sarah Sims and Ashley King hosted the event at the Phoenix #1 Family Center for a night of snacks, hands-on activities, and an Apache language experience, and more fun. And finally, in this month of gratitude, and as the daughter of an Air Force veteran, I want to recognize and celebrate 2 of our leaders who have served in the armed forces, Ms. Nicole Baker our Executive Director of Communication, Marketing, and Community Relations, and Mr. Dirk Olmsted, our new Director of Plant Services and our current principal at Whittier. Thank you to all of our veterans and their families for their service to our country. We are proud of your service and grateful for your sacrifice. And that concludes our awards, recognitions, and celebrations.
Thank you. That was great information shared, and congratulations at the Betsy conference. That was neat. Moving on to item B1, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, and I want to begin by thanking the governing board for your trust in me. I want to share how much I believe in our district and the people who have chosen to work here. I know that together we are going to accomplish great things for our children, our families, and our staff. To that end, I want to reaffirm our commitment to the student outcomes-focused governance model. We believe that we can accomplish great things with that laser-sharp focus on our student outcomes. It's helping us to be really clear about the theories of action that drive our decisions and monitoring our inputs and outputs along the way in a way that helps us to ensure we're leaving less to chance and we have a more systematic approach to improving learning for every child in our district. We look forward to continuing to build on the foundation we started so that we can see more gains for the students that we know can achieve at the highest levels. We received word last week from the Arizona Department of Education Office of English Language Acquisition Services that they will be conducting their monitoring of our programs in February. As you will see in our progress monitoring later tonight for board goal number 3, our language acquisition team has already established strong systems to ensure the emerging bilingual students are receiving instruction that is supporting their academic growth. We're proud of the work our English language interventionists, our teachers, principals, and others are doing under the leadership of Mrs. Mary Lou Gonzalez and Ms. Sarah Irizarry. We're also looking forward to the work of the Technology Planning Committee. This committee will be led by Mrs. Lauren Ashmore for Educational Technology and Mr. Michael McPhee for the infrastructure and systems aspects of technology. The committee will be working with community stakeholders from across the district, including our Superintendent Student Leadership Advisory Council. That group will be doing action research to inform the work of the committees and will be presenting to the governing board in late March or early April. And we look forward to bringing the work of that committee to the governing board in May. And finally, a very special thank you to our plant services team. This is the team of people that are responding to emergencies in the middle of the night, in the very early mornings, when we have those unexpected delights of things like a water feature that's exploding on the sidewalk or a pipe that has been broken. They are there making sure that our campuses are safe and ready to serve our students at all hours of the morning and the evening. And we appreciate their work, not only in these emergencies, but also in the care that they take every day to keep our campuses safe and attractive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any board member reports?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Carmen Trujillo. I have a few. Today is Giving Tuesday, so I hope we're all mindful about sending PESD #1 some money today. However, that's possible. Today, I also had the pleasure of presenting some information to our effective school board cohort through the Council of the Great City Schools. We did sort of a lit review on all of the sources of information that our student outcomes focused governance framework was built on. So that was fun and interesting. I got to also attend the Garfield Garden on the Corner 2 weeks ago. Some of the staff students were super helpful to my son Christian and I got to take home a humongous squash, some shallots, Italian parsley, some mint, some green peppers, and mixed greens for my pet bunny. I also got to attend the Heroes in Education event put on by Maricopa County Community Colleges. It was at the Phoenix Art Museum, and I got to network with some other folks in public education service. And lastly, we've got Garfield's first Fine Art Festival coming up this first Friday, December 1st, 4 to 5 p.m. in their school cafeteria. There'll be some performances, I read, by the Art Club juried show, the Garfield Edison Jazz Band, as well as Garfield's Garden on the Corner. So I hope everyone will consider making some time to pop by Garfield this Friday. The cafeteria, again, it's in the cafeteria, and show our Garfield Grizzlies some support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Nothing for me.
Okay. I would like to share that the week of the 16th, I was able to attend the Peter Piper fundraiser for Magnet. That was a good turnout. So yay for Magnet. And then the following day, Friday, I was able to spend the morning volunteering at Edison. They had their Tunnel of Hope festivities all day long. I want to congratulate Principal Fuentes for all the hard work and effort that took to make sure that that day was very special for our students. So I really enjoyed myself and was really proud of how many parents showed up to volunteer. We had a lot of families there, and it just really felt empowering to have our families just share with us just how special Edison is and how excited their students are to go to Edison. And it was just so heartwarming to experience, because, you know, they have no idea who I am. So they're just talking to me like I'm just a regular person, and I just take it all in because I just love hearing their excitement. And then lastly, I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday break last week. Welcome back to school. And we look forward to continue to celebrate and have holiday spirit around here. So that ends my report, and we are moving on to our student outcome focused governance. Thank you. We always start off with some grounding work. So just a reminder of our student outcomes focused governance and the framework and why are we doing this work. Next. So the premise is student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. Next. And here's an infographic of what the governance model looks like. It's the 6 competencies that include vision and goals, values and guardrails, monitoring and accountability, communication and collaboration, and lastly, the unity and trust and continuous improvement. Next. And here are our goals. As you can see, our first 2 goals are focused on early childhood. We have literacy and mathematics. Our third goal, which we will hear more about today, is goal 3 around our English learners. And goal 4 and 5 are focused on our middle school years of literacy and mathematics. Next. And we have some guardrails. As you can see, there's 5 guardrails that help the superintendent focus on some of the other responsibilities that are outside of our academic achievement. Next. And with that, our board guardrails are also helping us stay on track with the framework. With that, we'll move on to our progress monitoring goal number 3. To you, Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam President. This afternoon, this evening, we're presenting on our governing board goal number 3. This is the percent of English language learners increasing at least 1 proficiency level as measured by AZELA. And we're aiming to have those students increase from 32% on the AZELA, showing performance increase on proficiency levels from 32% on August 2023 to 50% by August of 2028. And so on these reports, we sent these reports in ahead of time to the governing board members, and the governing board members then submit questions. And our job now is to entertain answering those questions. And so I'm very pleased to have Dr. Lloyd and Mrs. Mary Lou Gonzalez here to help respond to these questions. So what I'll do is I'm going to read the question, and all of our questions this evening were submitted by Vice President Trujillo. And our first question in looking at slide 1 was a question of what does building familiarity look like for our emergent bilinguals? And you'll see in here, one of the areas that we're focusing on and things that are working is that building familiarity. So Dr. Lloyd or Mrs. Gonzalez, would one of you like to respond?
Of course. Hello, President Bueno, members of the board and community. Thank you for having me. So in terms of familiarity, the reason why we need familiarity is because the test format changed. The whole test changed in 2023. And so that's why you can see there's a dip, right? In 2022, we had a higher percent of students with increasing the proficiency level. And in 2023, it dipped to 32%. And we're trying to ensure that students understand now what it looks like to show their proficiency with the new format. So some of the things that Ms. Gonzalez is working on is making sure that students are more familiar with the type of tasks that are going to be required of them. So she has worked and developed some interim assessments that have actually been given over the last few weeks to help both students and their teachers understand how do we make sure that students are prepared for those tasks, and also how do we make sure to measure and monitor their progress with their language development with reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And so those are some of the tasks that have been developed. They're also going to be taking sample assessments that help prepare them for the assessment. And then within the instructional time that they get, they're also practicing more those tasks that are going to help them. And oftentimes those are linked to what the state has provided recently, which are called performance level descriptors, which help us see what does proficiency really look like at different levels. If you're a novice student or a basic, at the basic level of proficiency, what does that look like? So we can have them complete those tasks and then let them know, oh, you used a few words, in responding to this question. So you are at a basic level. If you're able to give me a few sentences, now you are intermediate, right? And so they can start seeing and understanding how they can grow and show more of their proficiency in the task so they can be more successful with that assessment.
So a big focus has been working with our EL interventionists. So the process has been first getting familiar with items. So we did use the performance level descriptors and some of the practices. That's been great that we've had those sessions with our EL interventionists because we've got to dig into those test items. Where do they fall on the performance level descriptors? To what proficiency level? So what skills do we need to get them to that proficiency level? So really having those discussions with each other. And then going from there, now how do we develop our own test items? Because we know that the sample test is only a limited number of test items. We need to start developing our own so that we have more in the bank for not just our EL interventionists, but our teachers. And prior to that, some of those steps to ensure that it's not familiarity just through the EL interventionist. One of our first PDs in the year was that each school did an EL PD for all our teachers. So they're familiar with the test. So they had to take one of the units of the test in their grade band to experience what are the expectations of the test. So they keep those in mind in each of the domains. So we're excited because we did give them the task last week to go and prior to vacation to use the interim assessments that were created through Nearpod that really use some of the sample items and some of the ones that we've slowly started to create to go out and use them with their students. And so this session tomorrow, they're going to bring in the data and their findings that Dr. Lloyd cut to attend that DCTM and give us some pointers of, you might want to also look at behaviors of students and document that of what do you notice, what do they struggle with. So tomorrow we'll have those discussions. So it's a continuation, and the goal is to have interims that we develop, but we also are working with AZAC to have interim assessments as well.
And AZAC is the Arizona Assessment Collaborative.
And so you can see the work that they're doing is not only helping to prepare our students, but it's also helping to prepare our teachers so that our teachers are really understanding how to plan for and how to develop our students' proficiency levels. And so obviously I'm sitting here just beaming with pride as they talk because they're an amazing team and we're so lucky to have them. The next question from Board President or Vice President Trujillo is, how do we know that focusing on these strategies is working? And I'm going to start with Ms. Gonzalez to respond to that question.
So we know that last year was the first year we got to see the assessment, and we could see that it was very important for all of our students to get exposed to the new format of the test, because it was going to be different, especially in the speaking and listening. So we got to see those schools that really focused on giving that practice to the students, how it affected their reclassification rate. So we know there's a correlation between that, but also just thinking, being mindful of what are those skills that are being asked for and incorporating them. So when we go in to do, because we do quarterly walkthroughs for our EL interventionists, do we hear some of that coming out in the instruction? And is it with the goal of getting them prepped for that? So we do see a correlation with, it's not just teaching to the test. That's what we don't want. We want to make it as natural as this is part of the instructional focus because it's tied into what they're going to be assessed and expected to do.
Are there any questions or you're good?
I have just a really quick comment. I know we had this presentation not too long ago, but I just figured that we will have this evolution and, you know, just kind of filling in what those knowledge gaps for myself would be. That was where my questions are coming from, just to throw that out there. Thank you.
Those are great questions.
We appreciate the questions. And as Ms. Gonzalez is saying, they're great questions. They're really helping not only solidify your own knowledge and understanding, but it really does help us all to reify our own understanding and what we believe about learning for our emergent bilinguals. So the next question was a great question on slide 2. Seeing that our free and reduced lunch groups and our Hispanic groups are so close in number, which circumstances should be considered looking at the difference in their 2024 target percentage? And I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Lloyd.
Thank you. So one of the first pieces of information we look at is their starting point, right? And so although we have the two groups, Hispanic students who are identified as Hispanic and free and reduced lunch, those who qualify there. They're fairly similar in their numbers. The demographic may be somewhat different. And so I look at where their baseline is. So in this case, Hispanic, the current percent of students who showed growth or a change in placement level was 29%, you know, between a quarter and a third. And it was 39% for free and reduced lunch. So when we set the goals, we're wanting to keep it feasible and attainable, but try and move everybody at the right rate. And so we also looked at historical data to see usually from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, we go up around 20%. And so that's where those were set, looking at some of that historical data too, adding it from that baseline.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. On the next slide, it's actually, we're going to scoot to A2, one of our appendix slides. The question is to please explain why fall 2022 and fall 2023 data as listed on page 2 on this page is not relevant to or needed for the information shared again on this page. I believe this has been explained, but a refresher is in order so that it helps to stick. And so the data that we were just looking at on page 2, this is a different table that's showing the data in a different format. And so again, I'll have Dr. Lloyd explain this.
So I think part of this was confusion because I didn't label, or some of the labels need to be updated. So that might be part of it. So it says spring 22 to fall 22. That should have actually said spring 23 to fall 23. Because what these tables are showing is when we break it down by school and demographic, the percent of students who were able to show, you know, an improvement in a placement level. And so that will be corrected. We'll make sure that that gets updated to 2023. Yeah, and we only put one year on this just because of the amount of information that we have to put in a single table. It would be very tiny to do 2 years on one slide. Yeah.
Even with my readers, I would not be able to read it. But as another reminder, whenever you see the less than 10, That's a reminder that in each of those settings and in each of those subgroups, there are fewer than 10 students who fall into the category and as classified as emergent bilingual. And so we can't report data on groups of students under the N of 10. And thank you. Are there other questions for Dr. Lloyd or for Ms. Gonzalez?
I don't have any questions, but I was mentioning to Vice President Trujillo that this board, goal number 3 is very, very dear to me because I am a product of Capital. When I was 7 years old, I got here into the United States, and Capital was actually the first school that I ever attended, not speaking English and not having any of this in place. And I'm talking about many, many years ago. So this is really incredible that we're here and that you guys are doing all the work. And I'm so excited for the kids and I'm so excited for their learning. And just to know that there is metrics and there's a process for them and there's guidance for them, and to know that the families are going to be behind the kids and the students and everybody is just, it's definitely very, very exciting to see. And I cannot wait to see what the next step of it, and then see the new numbers that you guys are going to produce to us, and just to see their involvement and their growth. So thank you so much for the work. Thank you so much.
I do have a question, back to slide number 1. I would like to better understand, what does that 8-week intensive program look like to help with accessing the foundational vocabulary, and what support is being provided at home for parents to also help?
That's a wonderful question, and it's a great opportunity for us to highlight the Newcomer Center. Again, one of the brilliant ideas that came from our language acquisition team. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gonzalez.
And I'll just share really quick, a quick story from one of our newcomer students that I was taking him to do placement testing. And he was like, "Do you work here?" And I'm like, "No, my office is down the street." "Do they speak Spanish there?" And I go, "Well, I have to use my English to work there." And then his next question was, "Well, how did you learn it?" And so I was like, "Well, I went to school." And it just so happens that the EL interventionist at Dunbar happens to be my kindergarten teacher at Garfield. So I'm like, the teacher that you sometimes go and see, she was my first teacher that started teaching me English. So it was one of those things where he got, there is a process. And I always tell people, come over to our newcomer program. The kids are so excited. I was just over at Capitol, and Ms. Spots was saying how their 8th grader is always up front waiting for the bus, excited to go. So they definitely do get a bond with all the other students because they know they're going through the same journey. So to answer your question about intensive, we truly strive to give them that expectation. This is your safe zone to practice. There is no making fun of each other, because you know that when you go back, you're not going to have that safe zone. So let's practice. Your expectation is to use. So we use a lot of sentence phrasing that they are expected to use with each other and to practice. So when we say intensive, is that we kind of go have a no excuse kind of format that, this is what we only have 8 weeks. And so we want to get you with your basics so you feel comfortable to ask questions, you feel comfortable to present yourself, and if somebody's asking you basic questions. So it's exciting when we walk in and by the 3rd week, they're like, "Hello, Ms. Gonzalez, how are you?" And then they're with "thank you" and "welcome," because they feel confident to say it. And if they didn't have that intensity of expectation, we wouldn't see that until months along, probably in a regular classroom. So turning them over to their school is the teachers get to see a more confident student that's willing to participate more. So we do have 8 modules, and they all focus on building their language. They start with just basic greetings all the way to how to function if they're out in the community. So that's why we end our 8 weeks with a trip in the community to go to the library. And that was a phenomenal, I think I told you, where one of the students just looked out and he was, "That's the library," because he's at Kenilworth, and he never realized how close the library was to him. So it's also exposing them to what's around them. So making it very useful for their lives. And it's definitely something that, if we could expand it, because we know that it's needed, it would be something awesome for our families. We are working this cohort with one of our social workers that is calling each of the parents to find out what are resources and what services they would like to have. And so we're working with her to have that communication. And so it's been, and that social worker has also been able to do some of the bullying program to ensure that the students also know about what is their rights in the classroom. So it's little pieces that will add up a lot for them. So when they go back to their classroom, they feel, or to their homeschool, they feel more comfortable. And so we've had students that weren't in our area of boundaries, but have decided to stay in our district because of the program. So
Thank you so much for answering my question. And I think that's my only question. Hearing no other questions, thank you all so much for all your hard work and sharing those stories. They just like help me put, a face to the story, and it's just so empowering, and just thank you so much for all your work.
but we appreciate the support. Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to community communications. Do we have any in person or virtual?
We do not have any in person or electronic.
No, we didn't get any electronically?
No.
Okay. Next, we have our consent agenda. May I get a motion to approve our consent agenda?
This is Carmen Trujillo. I move that we approve our consent agenda.
Erica De La Rosa, second the motion.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, and we are moving on to our information and discussion items, where we will receive and discuss our ASBA advisory policy recommendations as a second read. Thank you. So this is updated from our last conversation on the 14th. This is our second read. Okay, we don't approve yet. So my comments, next slide, were around the evaluation of the superintendent. So thank you for updating to that recommendation. And next slide. Got that one too, recommend. Okay. And then the next slide. Was there any other input that you all had?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Thank you. With that, we're moving on to our executive session. We will be breaking to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1. The governing board may vote to hold an executive session to discuss the interim superintendent contract with the interim superintendent. May I get a motion to break us into executive session?
This is Carmen Trujillo, so moved.
Erica De La Rosa, second.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are breaking at 5:59 to go into executive session. We'll be back shortly. Thank you. Okay, we are returning from executive session at 6:14. May I get a motion to return to regular session. A second?
Erica De La Rosa, second.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Yes.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Yes.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to our action item. Number 1, the governing board may discuss and take possible action concerning the interim superintendent contract. Can I get a motion?
Erica De La Rosa, I second the motion.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we're moving on to our closing items. Do we have any board member requests?
None from me.
Nope.
Nothing for me.
Future agenda items? Nope. Okay. Adjournment. We are adjourning at 6:15. I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
This is Carmen Trujillo, I second.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Ms. Erica De La Rosa,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, our next governing board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 12th at 5:15 at our district office. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a good evening.